It's like, imagine like these little electric robots that just sort of bounce around. They're inside like a little children's game, and they bounce off some things and get stuck on other things, and they're like these little... And so actually, the more we're attached... Something's about to happen. It's very interesting because when I was a student in Berkeley in the late 1960s, and they had a sexual revolution and all these freedoms, and in the name of freedom, people were enslaving themselves. For example, in the name of freedom, someone takes heroin, and bye-bye freedom. We can make some free choices that destroy the freedom that enabled the choice. Actually, if you look at the sinful activities, the famous sinful activities, why are they sinful? Because they destroy freedom. They actually destroy freedom. If you think about gambling, people become so addicted to gambling, compulsive gamblers. I mean, it's disgusting. But like in Las Vegas and other gambling places, they can't leave the table or the slot machine, and they actually defecate. I mean, they have to have special crews that go around and clean up the gambling halls because, you know, people destroy their lives. They destroy the lives of their families. I mean, it's a real addiction. So gambling, sex addiction, there's all kinds of 12-step programs for people with sex addiction. I mean, and you read in the paper, someone, very respectable position, has money, family, power, and they totally destroy their life with child pornography or something like that. I mean, it happens all over. And so if you look at these things like illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, I mean, no problem to understand that one. Intoxication or meat eating. To give an example of how meat can become an addiction that destroys someone's intelligence, you need look no further than the environmental movement. They have all these big global environmental conferences. Now there's going to be one in Paris, and they never, ever, ever talk about the main cause of greenhouse gases, which is, of course, the cattle industry, animal killing. It's actually the #1 cause, according to the United Nations. You probably know all these things. According to the United Nations, the cattle industry causes more greenhouse gas than all the motorized vehicles on Earth. That means cars, planes, trucks, boats, trains, ferry boats, you name it. The cattle industry causes more and so it's like insane. I mean, I was at the University of Florida a couple of years ago giving a lecture, and they have all these, you know, recycle, and here's the trash can for plastic, and here's the trash can for this, and then right next to it, there's a little campus restaurant with meat. So I said in my lecture that you're causing 100 times, if not 1,000 times more damage by this food than the good you're doing by all these cute little recycling bins. And so, but somehow they're so addicted to meat. I mean, nothing could be a better proof that meat is an addiction than the fact that even to save their own planet, they won't talk about it. They actually won't talk about it. And they never do talk about it. There's a very good movie called, you've probably seen it, Cowspiracy. Instead of conspiracy, Cowspiracy. And they actually document this and show that the environmental movement actually is against the animal rights movement. I mean, it's incredible. It's really incredible, and because it's just this demonic addiction. And it causes cancer. Look, okay, it causes cancer, it's destroying the earth, but don't talk about it. So the point is, like, what is a sinful activity? It doesn't necessarily mean you're an evil person. I mean, there are evil deeds, like going and shooting a bunch of innocent people. That, I think, is real evil. But when you talk about the so-called sinful activities, it's not just that, you know, you're an evil person. It's that you're destroying your own freedom. You're self-destructing. So, and of course, there's just like a long, if you think about it, like take material lust. Everyone's interested in that now that I have your attention. So if you think about material lust, everyone in the material world has some degree of lust. And so when it crosses a certain point, it becomes criminal. For example, the case of rape. The case of rape or child abuse and so on. And so it's a question of degree. And someone who has less lust, they can control it. And they can still act as more as a civilized human being. But then, so Prabhupada, for example, when Prabhupada defines illicit sex, this is something which unfortunately is not, somehow this information is repressed for some strange reason. But Prabhupada, if you actually look it up, a lot of the time Prabhupada says illicit sex is sex outside of marriage. And sometimes he says it's sex that's not for procreation. So there's obviously this whole category of illicit sex there's a range of meanings. There's like an entry level. It starts here, or let's say if someone that, let's say, engages in sex only in marriage, that's also, according to Prabhupada, following the principle. But of course that's not the highest standard. As one advances more in Krishna consciousness, one comes to a higher standard. And so if you think about it, and then there's adultery, there's sex outside of marriage, which often destroys the life of children. So if you think about it, there's all these different ranges, and then when sex is really out of control, it actually becomes criminal. It is officially criminalized by the government. And so it's interesting, you can see, depending on the consensus values of a particular society, because the laws reflect, I mean, if you look at the relationship between societies and their laws, you could say the laws shape culture, but culture also shapes the law. When enough people in a society change their opinion, they change the laws. And so it's interesting, if you study different societies, to see at what point they criminalize sexuality. At what point they criminalize it, and in what range is it still considered to be legal? Perhaps not good manners, perhaps not admired, but still legal. There's actually 3 stages. There's a stage of criminal behavior, then there's a stage of legal behavior that is not respected, and then there's a stage of behavior which is legal and is respected. And so you can just study different societies to see where they draw the lines. And of course the lines move throughout history. If you have like a visual image flashing through history, you would actually see the lines moving based on human experience. Anyway, but it's our degree of attachment. It's our degree of attachment that determines to what extent we do not live in the present. We live in the past or the future, and aversion. So Krishna says, so that's one sense of being equal to all living beings. That's one meaning of it. That you see everyone as spirit souls. You don't lust after anyone. You don't hate anyone. You would hate them if they were their bodies, but since they're not their bodies, we don't hate them. But only because they're not the body. Let's be honest here. But there's another sense of samak sarveshu bhuteshu, and well, I mean, it's a related sense, and that is, we not only don't lust after we don't become attached to people materially, we don't hate them, but also we treat them fairly. We treat everyone fairly. Krishna emphasizes this. Suridak sarvadehina, in the Bhagavatam, that saintly people are equal to all living beings. Or Krishna says, Pandita Samadarshana, wise people see all living beings equal. Equality is a big topic in the Bhagavad-gita. Krishna defines yoga as equality. Samatwang yoga uchate, 247. Krishna actually defines yoga as equality. And so this gets into an interesting point, an interesting challenge for a spiritual society. And that is, Krishna emphasizes very strongly that we have to be equal to everyone, but Krishna also explains that he himself has introduced a social hierarchy. In chapter 4, Krishna says, Chatur Varnya Mayasristam. I've created the Varna system, which is a hierarchy. In fact, the Bhagavatam and the Rig Veda, of course, originally, describe how the Varnas are mapped onto the cosmic body of God. So that the Shudras are the legs or feet, the Vaishyas are the waist, and the Kshatriyas are the arms or chest, and the Brahmins are the head. So it's definitely a hierarchy. So how do you reconcile these two principles of hierarchy and equality? The answer is that it's a challenge, and if we look at Indian history, just among many histories, sometimes they got it right, and many times they really didn't get it right. For example, on the one hand, we find a civilization that is more powerfully than any other civilization teaching the oneness of all life. On the other hand, you have what became perhaps the most oppressive social hierarchy almost in history. In terms of a civilization that actually went on for centuries, not just like some crazy sociopath dictator takes over and oppresses people, but a civilization, a culture that goes on for centuries. And so, and at other times, India was the spiritual center of the world and a beacon of light. And so, and the Bhagavatam is keenly aware of the problem. So, as the Romans would say, don't kill the messenger. I'm just reporting this. The point is that, for example, you'll find many verses in the Bhagavatam, such as, what is that verse? Shama eva hi kevalam. What's the first line? That Dharmak swanashita pumsam vishwak sena katasu jatnot pada ye jatiritim shama eva hi kevalam. The whole Varnashram system, if you don't develop love for Krishna, which means to see everyone equally, then it's just, you just wasted your time, useless labor. And there are many. The Bhagavatam, for example, says that just as you put a ring in the nose of an ox and you can just pull it because it's like unbearably painful, so you can control this huge animal. So you can be, so-called rational human being or this or that, or powerful, and yet one is led, one is dragged by one's attachment to hierarchy. So why this attachment to hierarchy? First of all, because we want to lord it over, and so you need someone below you, because if no one's below me, I can't do any really good lording it over. So, excuse me, could you please be beneath me? It's just like, let's say you find an expensive car, and then, oh my God, my worst nightmare. Now everyone's buying that car. I lost my status, because everyone's buying the car. Status means, by definition, few people have it. If everyone has it, there's no status. So, we can also apply that to our sense of Vedic culture. There's a danger, just like Prabhupada, he taught us dovetailing. If you look at Prabhupada's history in New York, people were coming, they were taxed to eating, everyone likes to eat. So Prabhupada cooked wonderful prasadam so they could, okay, you want to eat prasadam. The problem is that unless you're an absolutely pure devotee like Prabhupada, Paramahansa, please raise your hand if that's your situation, and I will make sure everyone understands this doesn't apply to you. But if we're not great, pure, liberated devotees in the highest sense of the word, that means we're conditioned souls to some extent. We're still conditioned. And what's the conditioning? No brainer. The conditioning is we want to lord it over the material world. I mean, what else is conditioning? Prabhupada says we come to this material world because we want to enjoy without Krishna and lord it over. So that means even in a spiritual society, we can, how should I put it, dovetail our desire to think we're better than everyone else, and we can become very attached. Actually, it's possible. Lord Chaitanya talks about weeds in the garden. The garden is, the devotional creeper, our devotion, but weeds grow. And one of the most prominent weeds is thinking I'm better than everyone else. Because I'm a devotee, therefore I'm better than everyone else. Therefore, and I want to constantly emphasize that I'm different from everybody else and I'm better than everyone else. And so, or within a spiritual society, it's possible one becomes a leader. It can, make one a little lightheaded. Not impossible. This is not talking about anyone in this room or anyone in Denmark. I'm just saying it's a danger. It's actually a danger. And so, if we look at the history of India, we see that, how should I put it? Religions, like economies, have what are called boom-bust cycles. You know, the economic boom, then economic bust. You know, that's just the nature of life. Things go up and they go down and they go up again. And so, if we are still in the mode of passion, Krishna actually explains this in Bhagavad-gita. In chapter 18, verse 21, Krishna describes knowledge, jnana, which in this case means something like worldview. Krishna describes knowledge in the mode of passion. Actually, I'll read it to you. Why not? It's right here. Yes. Pritag twaina tu jnanam. Nana bhavan pritag vidan. Veti sarveshu bhuteshu tad jnanam vidhirajasam. So Krishna says that you should know that when someone has a worldview or knowledge and passion, when they look at all different creatures, human beings, animals, whatever, men, women, they see the difference. They see that men and women are really different. They see that human beings are really different. Human beings and animals are really different. That people of different nationalities are really different. And so on. So, I mean, there are differences in the world. There really are different races, different genders, different ages, different ethnicities. They actually exist. But in the mode of passion, one sees these as reality. That's real. Men and women are really different. And Danes and Swedes are really different. And so on. Whereas in goodness, if someone has actually come to the mode of goodness, then sarva bhuteshu jain aikam bhavam abhyam ikshate avibhaktam vibhakteshu tad jnanam vidhi sattvika. Krishna says you should know knowledge and goodness means that of course you see the difference. I mean, any fool knows there's men, there's women. Actually, there's men, there's women. And there's human beings, and there's animals, and there's this, and there's that. But in goodness, one sees, even in material goodness, for God's sake, not to speak of Krishna consciousness, even in material goodness, one sees that within all those different beings, there is the same, there is one spiritual nature. And so if someone, even someone claiming to be a Vaishnava, if someone is still in passion, then what really strikes them, what's really important to them about the world is how people are different. The main thing to know about men and women is they're different. The main thing to know about people of different countries is they're different. That's what's really important. And therefore all these, rules and regulations, that's what's really important. To never forget that people are different. Whereas in goodness, if someone is actually in the mode of goodness, then they see, okay, yeah, sure, of course, we have different kinds of bodies. But what's really important is that we're one. That's what's really important. That's what's really significant. The oneness. So, frankly, you can tell to what extent someone is in goodness or passion by just, counting all the words they speak and how much they talk about the differences, the need to keep certain groups down and keep certain groups up, and how much they actually talk about the oneness. Yeah, just, do the math. See what they talk about all the time. So, that's the challenge for a spiritual society. Because there are natural hierarchies. Just like parents naturally are in charge of their children. Or a guru and disciple. Or all kinds of relationships. There are natural hierarchies. But anyone who's really Krishna conscious, even if they find themselves in a higher position, such as a mother or a father, or in a marriage. I mean, sometimes the man and the woman just really get along. Sometimes the man is more Krishna conscious. Sometimes the woman is more Krishna conscious. And so it just depends on the situation. But whenever one finds oneself in some position, then if you're Krishna conscious, you don't think you're better than the other person. You don't think you're better than the other person. You think that somehow or other it's my duty to help this person, but I'm not better than them. Parents, for example, loving parents, emotionally consider their children more important than them. I mean, parents who have emotional problems may think something else. But good parents actually feel that the children are more important. The parents are giving their lives, they're working hard, they're doing so many things. When I think of what my parents did for me, it's just amazing. I mean, myself and I grew up with 3 brothers, but my parents, they just, day and night, they did nothing basically. I mean, once in a while they took a little recreation, go out for the evening with their friends, and of course we'd call them, we're fighting, you have to come home, and drive them crazy. But basically, they gave their lives for us. They gave their lives for us. And so, to protect someone, whether it's a woman or anyone else, it doesn't mean you have to dominate them or bully them. It actually means the opposite. It means that person is more important than you. And it means that you dedicate yourself to helping that person, not to trying to just, push them around. So, that's the test of how spiritual we really are. There is a balance, there are natural hierarchies, but the real truth, Krishna says, is the oneness. So Krishna gives us a hierarchy, the Varna system, but he also gives us, he keeps preaching the oneness and says, you cannot become fully Krishna conscious unless you really understand this oneness of everyone. And so that's the challenge. Can we maintain natural hierarchies, but not become lost in them? Because if I still want to lord it over, I'm just going to jump all over that hierarchy. Oh my God, I love it. I love the Varna system. Because I get to be on top and other people are below me. And we see this history. We see how the Varna system, historically at different times, became a violent instrument of oppression. A violent instrument of oppression. That's real history, if you care to read it. So, and other times it led people to God. So, are we more passionate? Are we truly virtuous? Just look at, you can measure these things. Prabhupada said he came to start to reconstitute a Brahmin class. A Brahmin has to be intelligent. A Brahmin should think. So we have to be intelligent. We have to keep our eyes open. We have to learn to act intelligently for Prabhupada, so that we can serve his real interest. Anyway, any questions on these points? No refunds. Yes?
You are speaking about the future is not existing and the past is not existing, and only the present is existing. So then how we can understand from Bhagavad-gita the person who is Trikalagya, who knows present, future and past?
Trikalagya, Kala there, usually as is understood in the Bhagavatam, refers to different ages. For example, we are Chatur Kalagya, we are knowers of 4 times, namely, where are we now? Fall, winter, spring, and summer. That's why stores at a certain point start selling winter clothes, at another time they start selling summer clothes. So, for example, if you look at Vyasa, if you look at the Vyasa foreseeing the Kali Yuga coming, it's not that he said, oh my God, so-and-so is going to be king, and this person is going to do this. No. He saw the season. He saw that a terrible season is coming. And therefore, he made preparations in various ways. So, but we don't really have stories in the Bhagavatam where someone knows that, okay, 3 years from now, this person's going to walk through that door and ask me for a glove jamun or something. I mean, we don't really have stories like that. Yes?
What about the chronologies in the Bhagavatam that Sukadeva, he talks about in the future?
Yes.
He's going to be this king, and he's going to have this son, and this come, and at one point,
yes.
And then his prime minister is going to kill him and take over.
That's a good point, yes, yes.
So that it seems that there are predictions, very specific. predictions by Shukadev given?
There are predictions like that, and how should I put it? And there's also a prediction of Buddha.
Yeah.
There's also Kikateshu Bhavishati. Of course, what the mundane scholars will say, that was written after the fact, as we know. In a very limited way we have that, but not to the extent of, I mean, if you look at it, it's really just a list of kings. And okay, this one kills that one, then he becomes the king. And so we don't really, it's nothing equivalent to actually seeing the future and actually seeing all the events. It basically, the future events, the only specific future events are like Buddha will come, and he will trick those who... So the extent that, for example, we also have that kind of general future information. For example, there's a television guide. And so we know that at this time this program will be on, at that time that program will be on, and so on. Or we know, for example, that 3 months from now some world leader is coming to Denmark, or a year from now there's going to be an Olympic game somewhere and this country will be in charge of it. So there is, I mean, to the extent that in the case of Buddha, avatars, like Prabhupada calls that chapter scheduled incarnations. And so the things that are predicted in the case of Buddha is a scheduled, to use Prabhupada's word, a scheduled avatar. And so certain sages know the schedule. What we don't find in the Bhagavatam, for example, is all the detailed information. Like if someone, in other words, if someone, let's say someone actually traveled to the future, or let's say someone before Buddha came traveled to the future and saw Buddha, and then we'd get all kinds of information, as if someone was really there and could write, this is what happened in the future. But that's not the kind of information we get. It's more a schedule. And so the extent to which, let's say Krishna had a plan to introduce Kali Yuga, and part of that plan was a particular succession of kings, and so we get basically lists of names. And even those lists are incomplete, because if you actually calculate all the times of the kings, it's only a partial list, and it just gives a general intention. It shows that that these certain dynasties will come, but it's really, like you said, there's a few very exceptional things, like this person will kill, like whenever a dynasty changes, this is why it changed, because this person conquered that person, or this person will kill that person. But apart from that, there's no other information. Nothing like the information that would show that someone actually went to the future and observed everything, came back, and then told all about it. It's just sort of scheduled dynasties.
But Krishna is the knower of complete past, present,
True.
and future.
True. Yes, Krishna is Krishna. But Krishna knows the future because he's God. Krishna says, Bhavishani Chasar Bhutani. Krishna says in Bhagavat-gita, I know future beings. But apart from a list of kings and general conditions, that's what we have, a list. We have a king list and a scheduled avatar, 2 scheduled avatars actually, Buddha and Kalki. And that's it. And so Krishna has a plan, and so Krishna revealed this plan to Shuka. But what we don't find is Shuka claiming that now I'm seeing the future. This, in other words, we don't have an actual episode where Shuka travels to the future and witnesses